Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Abu Talib, he died, and we are in the 10th year of Al-Hijrah, 10th year of An-Nubuwah. He died, we said, at the age of 86 or 87. And some of the scholars, if you read from the book we use as our guideline, the Sealed Nectar, which everyone should have a copy of by now, the Shaykh, he likes to pinpoint the dates. So he says he died in Rajab of the 10th year. A few days after. Now, a few days, it's not specific. Nobody knows. Some scholars, they said 2 or 3 months. Some of them were very specific. They said 2 months and 6 days. Lakin Allahu A'lam. But after around 2 months, one of the, or if not the main support of strength and comfort for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, and that is his wife Khadija al-Mu'mineen, the mother of the believers, radiyallahu anha. This was a huge, massive, emotional blow to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Talib used to protect him from the outside forces, from the al-i'tida, from the transgression of the Quraysh who wanted to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and stop the propagation of Islam. Khadija was a greater pillar of strength for him, because any man or any woman at the end of the day, you go back home, the strength and the comfort and the tranquility you get at home is the engine which drives how you're going to run outside. So when she died, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was greatly saddened, and it was a massive loss for him. It was a massive loss for him. They had been together for 25 years. They had been together for 25 years because this is the 10th year of the Hijrah, after the 10th year of prophethood, and they were married when the Prophet ﷺ was how old? 25. And he became a prophet when he was 40. So those are 15 years they were together. And then now, after 10 years, 15 and 10 is 25 years, she passed away, radiyallahu anha. They said she passed away in that Ramadan of the 10th year. So now, what is the status of Khadija? I know most of us, we know Khadija is great, but I don't think we know exactly how great she is. And why there's no other woman in this ummah who will ever reach her status. There's no other woman who will ever reach her status. Khadija radiallahu anha was the first wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when he was married to her, he did not marry or even think of marrying any other woman. Why? Because she was enough, sufficient, a complete woman. She gave the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam everything he needed. And the thing he needed most was not the money Khadija had. It was not the children, which is good to have children. Rather, it was the support. She was there for him. She never made him angry. She never made him angry. In the Sahihain, Bukhari and Muslim, Again, we're pointing out the excellence of Khadija, how great she is. Abu Hurairah reported the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ one day, he said to them, this is now in Medina after many years. He says, one day, Ata Jibril came to me. Jibril came to me. فقال, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, هذه خديجة قد أتت أي ستأتي معها إناء فيه إدام أو طعام أو شراب. Khadija, she's in the other room of the house, she's going to come to you soon. And she'll be carrying some food or water, whatever she's carrying to bring you, to serve you. فإذا هي أتتك, so when she comes to you, فَقْرَأْ عَلَيْهَا السَّلَامَ مِنْ رَبِّهَا وَمِنِّي. Give her salams from Allah and from me. Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, there's no other person who has received that. Nobody. And my brothers and sisters, you have to take in the greatness of this. Akramul Akramin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbul Kareem, the most noble. He sends salam from the most noble of all angels, Jibril alayhi salam, Shadidul Quwa Dhu Mirra, to the greatest Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to the greatest woman. There's no other person who was given salam by Allah like that. Khadija is going to come to you to show you her status. Tell her that Allah is giving her salam. And I am giving her salam. فَقْرَ عَلَيْهَا السَّلَامَ مِنْ رَبِّهَا, from her Lord, وَمِنِّي, and from me. No other woman ever achieved that. وَحَسْبُكَ, that is enough for you as a great excellence for Khadija. وَبَشِّرْهَا, but it doesn't end there. وَبَشِّرْهَا, and give her the good news. بِبَيْتٍ فِي الْجَنَّةِ, that she has a huge palace in Jannah. Min qasabin, it is made of hollow pearls. Oh, it's a pearl actually, one. One pearl which is huge enough for it to be carved into a house. We human beings, we have never seen something like that. بِبَيْتٍ فِي الْجَنَّةِ مِنْ قَصَبٍ لَا صَخَبْ فِيهِ وَلَا نَصَبْ. There's no sakhab. Sakhab is screaming and shouting. وَلَا نَصَبْ أي تعب. There's no difficulties in that house. Of course, it's Jannah. This is for Khadija and Khadija only. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pinpoint Khadija with a house which has these two qualities, bad qualities? Sakhab, there's no people screaming and shouting. It's a house of peace. Wala nasab, there's no ta'ab, there's no difficulties, there's Jannah. As-Suhail and others, they explained the hadith, they said, Allah chose these two qualities to describe the house of Khadija in Jannah, because that is the house she provided for the Prophet ﷺ in this world. She never screamed at him, or shouted at him, or abused him verbally. And she used to do what? Remove all the hardships on him. From outside, when people are attacking him, trying to kill him, he came inside the house and got comfort. There's no problems. And Allah is giving her a house in Jannah just like that. Aisha did not receive this great quality. Aisha is great. Neither did Maryam, nor Fatima, nor Asiya bint Muzahim. And those are the greatest women ever. Only Khadija, radiallahu anha. And Khadija, to show how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to love her, or before that, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in the hadith of Tirmidhi, "Hasbuka min an-nisa'i al-alamina." It is enough for you, the women of the world, meaning the greatest women. Maryam bint Imran, the mother of Isa, Jesus in English. وخديجة بنت خويلد وفاطمة بنت محمد وآسيا bint Muzahim, Imratu Fir'aun. No other women ever will get to the level of those 4 women. Now to show you how great Khadija is, number 1 we said Maryam, and then Khadija, and then who? And then who? Asya was mentioned last. Fatima. And who's Fatima? The daughter of Khadija. So the excellence Fatima has is from Khadija because she's her mother. There's no good deed a son or a daughter does except the reward goes to their parents. The Prophet ﷺ, or before going ahead, Al-Hafidh ibn Kathir, he tried to explain, he said, why these 4 women, or these 3 women exactly? Maryam, Khadija, and Asya. He said because they were women who took care and protected and gave comfort to the messengers of Allah during the times of hardship. As for Maryam, she took care of the great prophet Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, until they tried to kill him. And as for Khadija, that is what we're talking about. She took care of the greatest prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our prophet. And as for Asya, she is the one who took care and brought up who? Musa alayhi salam. Musa grew up in the house of Fir'aun. So Asya is his stepmother. And that is how they went and got this great status. Khadija radiallahu anha, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Khayru nisa'iha Maryam wa khayru nisa'iha Khadija." The greatest woman of this ummah is Khadija. Now I know there's a group of you who will say Aisha, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says no. And to show you that Khadija was greater than Aisha, Aisha radiallahu anha, she says, the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, ما غرت على أحد من النساء نبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما غرت على خديجة وما رأيتها. I have not been jealous to any of the wives of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم more than I have been to Khadija, and I have never seen her. This time when Khadija is dying, Aisha she was 3 years old. She was 3 or 4 maybe. I've never seen her. But the Prophet ﷺ, after Khadija married 9 other women, and Aisha was one of those women. So obviously, it is just human nature for a co-wife to have jealousy over another co-wife. She says, I was jealous over the others, but none like Khadija. And I never saw her. And she was never a co-wife to Khadija, because Khadija did not have a co-wife. That's how special she was. She was just by herself. Why is she so jealous of Khadija? And she never met her. She says, وَلَكِنْ كَانَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم يُكْثِرُ ذِكْرَهَا. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to mention her a lot. This is in Medina. This is in Medina now. Years after the death of Khadija. وَرُبَّمَا ذَبَحَ الشَّاةَ ثُمَّ يُقَطِّعَهَا أَعْضَاءً ثُمَّ يَبْعَثُهَا فِي صَدَائِقَ خَدِيجَةَ. And when the Prophet ﷺ would slaughter a sheep or a lamb, he would cut into pieces and send those pieces as gifts to the friends of Khadija. To the friends, not just the family of Khadija, friends of Khadija. فَرُبَّمَا قُلْتُ لَهُ. So sometimes I would say to the Prophet ﷺ, كَأَنَّهُ لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي الدُّنْيَا امْرَأَةٌ إِلَّا خَدِيجَةٌ. Why are you doing this? As if there's no other woman other than Khadija. There is a jealous woman speaking. فَيَقُولُ. So the Prophet ﷺ would say, إِنَّهَا كَانَتْ وَكَانَتْ وَكَانَ لِي مِنْهَا وَلَدٌ. She was like this, and she did this, and she did that for me. And she's the only woman who gave me children. So there was a stronger connection. So imagine, someone who never saw her is more jealous of her than the wives she's living with, the other wives. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ, after all those years, It was very clear. Everyone knew that he loved Khadija more than anyone. She did this for me and did that for me and did that for me. She was this for me and that for me. And Imam Ahmad, he reported a hadith. He says that Aisha said, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا ذكر خديجة أثنى عليها فأحسن الثناء. When the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم would mention Khadija, he would mention her in great praise, and he would mention so much great praise of her. He would praise her. You know, for the women, let me speak to the women, those who are married, by the way, because I sit with your husband sometimes. They don't really praise you. That's a reality. You don't smile, it's a reality. How many of us, if you are to be asked by someone to say, who do you love most, you say, my wife. In fact, some of us, we find it's aib, don't say that. You don't mention your wife. No, who told you? The Prophet used to do that. Who do you love most? Just Aisha. Everybody knows that he's mentioning Khadija so much. So when you find a man, he's so clear about it. And he praises her in front of his other women, in fact. You know that she has a special place. So Aisha says, when he used to mention Khadija, he will mention great praise of hers. And a lot. Until I would say, one day, she says, one day, قُلْتُ يَوْمًا فَغِرْتُ. I became so jealous. فَقُلْتُ, so I said, مَا أَكْثَرَ مَا تَذْكُرُهَا حَمْرَاءَ الشِّدْقِ. You mention too much and praise too much. حَمْرَاء الشِّدْقِ is the inner lip. Your lips inside. It's a saying they use for a woman who has lost her teeth. Someone who's old, they say حَمْرَاء الشِّدْقِ. Because there's no more white, there's no more teeth, it's just the gums and the lips, it's just red. When they say حَمْرَاء الشِّدْقِ, it means someone who is so old, they've lost their teeth. She is saying, you are praising too much, you know, someone who was so old that she lost all her teeth. Which was not true, obviously, she was not that old, Khadija. قَدْ أَبْدَلَ Look what she said. قَدْ أَبْدَلَكَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا. Allah has given you a wife who's better than her. She means herself, obviously. She means herself. فقال, so the Prophet ﷺ said, ما أبدلني الله عز وجل خيرا منها. Allah has not given me a woman better than her. The Prophet used to love Aisha, right or wrong? The whole world knows that. Yet he is saying to Aisha clearly, no. None of you are better than Khadija for me. Subhanallah. ما أبدلني الله عز وجل خيرا منها. No, Allah has never substituted her for someone who's better for me than like from all of you. قد آمن. Why is that? Listen now. قد آمنت بي إذ كفر بي الناس. She believed in me when the people disbelieved in me. And we went through that. وصدقتني إذ كذبني الناس. And she testified to my message when people are saying you're a liar. وواستني بمالها إذ حرمني الناس. And all her wealth, it was for use, for my use, for Allah's sake, for da'wah, when people did not even have to help me. ورزقني الله عز وجل ولدها إذ حرمني أولاد الناس. And Allah made her that she's the only woman I got children from. That is why none of the other wives would reach the status of Khadija. And that is why Imam al-Zuhri said, to show you how much the Prophet ﷺ valued her and how great she was in his eyes, and she should be in all of our eyes. That is why the Prophet ﷺ never got married to any other woman. Why? Because of her status, and number two, because she was the complete woman. She was the complete woman. We had mentioned here before the Prophet ﷺ got married to her, everyone in Mecca wanted to get married to Khadija because of her beauty before her wealth and because of her intellect before her lineage. She had everything. She was rich, she was very beautiful, she was from a great family, and she was a woman who was known to have a great intellect. She was very smart. So this is the status of our mother Khadija radiallahu anha. So you can tell that when she died, it was a great blow. The Prophet ﷺ was devastated. And that is right after his uncle had died. So you can say she lost the external support just like the internal support. And the only other person who was very close to him was Abu Bakr and his adopted son, Zayd ibn Harith. But even those ones, they were not that strong. Abu Bakr himself used to be tortured. People would want to torture and kill him. So this was a great event of sorrow. That is why all of us, we know that this year is called Amul Huzn, the year of sorrow. Why? Because he lost his uncle Abu Talib, and he lost more than his uncle Khadija, his wife, radiyallahu anha. So someone who Allah gave her salam directly, and Jibreel, the greatest angel, says, give her my salam, that is not someone we should treat as just anyone. So the next time you hear the praise of Khadija being mentioned, you should know that that is a woman who is of a great status. Nobody will touch Khadija. Her status, she is untouchable. So that was in Ramadan of the 10th year. What do we learn from that? That we mentioned so many hadith though. Maybe we should learn something. Number one, it is from the great characters of a human being, a Muslim especially, not to forget the good people do for you. It is from the great character of a Muslim that you do not forget the goodness people do for you. Anyone. And that is how the Prophet ﷺ used to be. And that is why yesterday we mentioned a few names. One of them is who? Al-Mut'im ibn Adi. And I told you, memorize that name. We're going to come back to it. The one who initiated the process of doing what? Of tearing the covenant of dhulm, of imposing sanctions and embargoes on the Muslims and Banu Hashim, Banu Abdul Muttalib in general. The Prophet ﷺ, from the character he taught us, do not forget any good someone does for you. That is from the noble characters a Muslim should have. That is why he is praising her because of what she did. She believed in me when nobody believed. She supported me when everybody said you're lying. And she gave me all her wealth for me to use. And what happened in the beginning, which we spent a lot of time on, the first revelation and how she played that great role, that is enough. That is enough. You can imagine someone who has the greatest job. The greatest job. You know what's the most difficult job? It's not construction. Construction is difficult, I know. But imagine being given the responsibility of preaching to the whole world. You are going to deliver this message to the whole world. And people who are involved in deep jahiliyyah, ignorance, they are so far away. The Prophet, the stress he had, we cannot even think about it. Anyone who has that kind of stress, emotional burden, needs support. That's how human beings were made. And that's the meaning of the saying, everybody says it. Behind every successful man, no, it's a great woman, not just a woman. If she's just a woman, she's going to drag him down, in fact. There's no success there. Khadija played that role. Yeah, I'm sorry to be very specific. That's how it is. She was that for him. That's why he never forgot her. You cannot. So he had 9 other wives, and they were great women, the greatest women of this ummah. Each one of them had her own great characters, as we're going to see. Yet, he said no. Allah did not replace her with anyone better than her. Number 2, from what we learn, is that she never discomforted or made him unhappy. She never made him unhappy. She never discomforted him. And that is why Allah rewarded her with a house in Jannah which has no discomfort and there's nobody who's screaming there. And we mentioned that last night when the Muslims they were boycotted, someone like Khadija who had so much wealth, she didn't have to suffer. But because she had to stand by her husband, she also went with the Prophet ﷺ to live in the Shi'ab Abu Talib, where there were an embargo or sanctions were imposed on them. There's no food being sold to them. And of course, the greatest of them, we said, someone who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says his salam to them directly. That is someone who is great. That is someone who is great. So, in the next month, Shawwal, Naam, Fadal, Bismillah, yes. Ahsan. All these hadith we mentioned, they're from Aisha. Even though she was so jealous of her, she did tell us all of this. And she explained how it was. You know, that shows us, her truthfulness and her, her fairness. She was fair enough to admit that the Prophet ﷺ said to her, no, you are not better than Khadija. She was fair enough to narrate this hadith to all of us. Naam, ahsant. In the Sahih of Imam Muslim, no, sorry, that is not the hadith I wanted. Anyway, we said the next month after Ramadan is what? Shawwal. The Prophet ﷺ was shown in a dream. He was shown in a dream, and we have mentioned here one of the ways the prophets get the revelation from Allah is through a dream. The prophets of Allah, they were protected from evil dreams which come from the shaitan. Their dreams were wahy, they were revelation. She was shown in a dream, he was shown in a dream, not once, not twice, that Jibreel or an angel was carrying this woman, and she was covered in a green silk cloth. And when they brought that woman to him, he saw that she was Aisha. He saw that dream once, he saw that dream twice. And that is when he knew that this was wahy from Allah. So the Prophet ﷺ went to Abu Bakr to propose and say, marry me to Aisha, or marry Aisha to me. Abu Bakr said, she's your daughter. That is how close Abu Bakr and the Prophet ﷺ were. They were like brothers. And he said, no, we are brothers in Islam. Islamically, though, I can marry your daughter. And Abu Bakr, obviously, that was a sharaf, something noble for him, that the Messenger of Allah would marry his daughter. So they wrote the contract, or they agreed on the marriage, the aqd al-nikah. So the first woman the Prophet ﷺ married after Khadija was, many of us we know it's Sauda. No, it's not Sauda. It was Aisha. But of course, Aisha was just a contract. It was just a contract. There was no physical interaction because she was young. And that was in the Shawwal of that year. And we're going to discuss the marriage of Aisha to the Prophet ﷺ once we get to the date of them actually being physically married. And we'll respond to all those misconceptions people spread today, inshallah. And then the Prophet ﷺ, in that same month or the month after, he got married to Sauda bint Zab'a radiallahu anha. Sauda bint Zab'a radiallahu anha. And she was the first woman that he cohabited with, he lived with after Khadija. We said Aisha was just a contract. But Sauda, they actually got married. And that shows you also the excellence of Sauda radiallahu anha. And she was a noble woman. She was a noble woman. And she was from Quraysh also, because you know the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, all of them were from Quraysh. All of them were from Quraysh. Sauda was married to her cousin, Sakran ibn Amr radiallahu anhu. His name is Sakran ibn Amr. And he's the brother of Suhail ibn Amr. Suhail ibn Amr radiallahu anhu. And Sakran, we mention him as one of the first believers. And he migrated to Abyssinia with his wife Sauda, the first migration, and the second migration. And then either people, they differ, the historians, they differ. He died there, or right when they came back, he died. Sakran ibn Amr, radiallahu anha, he died. And so Sauda was a widower. And she narrates the story of how the Prophet ﷺ got married to her. This is reported by Ahmad in his Musnad. When Khadija radiallahu anha died, Khawla bint Hakim. Khawla bint Hakim was the wife of Uthman bin Mad'un radiallahu anhu. We mentioned all of these names. These are the first believers, the first believers. She came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, Ya Rasulullah, ala tazawwaj, why don't you get married now? Khadija has died, why don't you get married? And he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, man, who? And she said to him, in shi'ta bikran wa in shi'ta thayyiban. If you want, she's a woman who was never married before, or someone who was previously married, whatever you want. And he said to her, Faman al-Bikr, who's the woman who's never married before? And she said, the daughter of your friend, Aisha. And he said, what about the woman who was married before? And she said, Sauda bint Zab'a. آمنت بك واتبعتك على ما تقول. She's a woman who believed in you from the first believers and she followed you. So the Prophet ﷺ said, okay, go and mention me to her. Go and mention me to her, if she's interested. She says, Khawla, so I went to Sauda and I said to her, ماذا أدخل الله عز وجل عليك من الخير والبركة. What great barakah, blessings and goodness Allah has brought you. She said, what is that? And she said, Afwan, the Prophet ﷺ sent me so that I mention him to you. She said, of course. I don't have to think. You know, it's nothing like, let me call you tomorrow. You know, no. The Prophet ﷺ, she says, yes, wadidtu, I would love that. I would love that. But look what she said. Udkhuli ila abi. You've talked to me now, talk to my father. Talk to my father. And mention this to him. Khawla says, so I went to her father. وَكَانَ شَيْخًا كَبِيرًا. He was a very old man. قَدْ أَدْرَكَتْهُ السِّنُّ. So I went to him, فَحَيَّيْتَهُ بِتَحِيَّةِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ. And I gave him the salam. We used to do the salam in Jahiliyyah because apparently he was not Muslim. And I said, he said, because he was very old, he couldn't see, Man hadihi, who's this? I said, Khawla bint Hakim. What do you want? He says, Arsalani Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, has sent me to propose to Sauda. And he said, Kuf'un Kareem. He is a noble man who is of great status just like we are. ماذا تقول صاحبتك? What does your friend say though? Even in Jahiliyyah, they did not have forced marriages. And we talked about this. And Islam came and removed that. What does your friend say? She said, تحب ذلك. She would love that. فقال, so the father said, ادعوها لي, bring her here. She came, and he said, أي بنية, oh my daughter. This one says that Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, wants to get married to you. And he is a great man of equal status. Would you like to marry him? She said, yes. So he said, the Shaykh, go and call him. And Khawla went and called the Prophet ﷺ, and he got them married. And that is how the Prophet ﷺ got married to Sauda bint Zam'a. And we'll talk more about Sauda, inshallah, in the status and the stage of Medina. So she lived with the Prophet ﷺ, and he did not get married to any other woman until after the Hijrah. So it was only Sauda for a period of time. So this is the 10th year, now it's ending. This is Shawwal, like we said. This is Shawwal. Now Abu Talib is dead. What does that mean for the Quraysh? What does that mean for the Prophet ﷺ? The man who used to protect him, the man they used to respect, is now gone. The man who used to prevent them from killing him is now gone. Now there's nobody for them to prevent them from doing any of that. So at this stage, the torture, persecution, and abuse of the Muslims increased. Especially now, specifically the Prophet ﷺ. We mentioned what they used to do to Bilal, what they used to do to Ammar, what they used to do to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. This was before. Now it was him specifically. Because now there's no more protector for him. And that is why Ibn Kathir, he says, most of those ahadith you heard, that they used to do this and that to the Prophet ﷺ, this happened during this time. Before this, they did not used to dare to attack the Prophet ﷺ. So, and that is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, ما زالت قريش كاعة حتى توفي أبو طالب. The Quraysh, they were timid. They could not do anything to me until Abu Talib died. Until Abu Talib, he died. From the things they did to him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Urwa bin Zubair, he says, you guys, who memorized Surah Ghafir here? Surah Ghafir. Anybody memorize Surah Ghafir? Nobody? You know Surah Ghafir? Or before that? Where are the gifts? We should be giving gifts. Who is the prophet who's mentioned most in the Quran? His story is mentioned most in the Quran. And it's multiple choice. Yani. Musa alayhi salam. Musa is the one who's mentioned most. His story is mentioned most. In Surah Ghafir, Allah mentions someone else in the story of Musa. We do not know his name. But Allah called him what? No, not Khidr. وَقَالَ رَجُلٌ مُؤْمِنٌ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ. There's a man who believed in Musa, but he was from the family of Fir'aun. That's all we know about him. We don't know his name. And Allah mentioned a long story about him. He believed, but he hid his iman because he's part of Fir'aun's family. And when they wanted to kill Musa, this man, he said what? أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَن يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ. Are you just going to kill someone because he says Allah is my God? That's it? That's a crime he committed? You understand? Allah says, وَقَالَ رَجُلٌ مُؤْمِنٌ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ يَكْتُمُ إِيمَانَهُ أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَن يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ. And a man said, and that man was a believer from the family of Fir'aun, but he was hiding his iman. Are you going to kill someone, meaning Musa, just because he says Allah is my God? You need to know this to understand the story I'm going to give you. In Sahih al-Bukhari, Urwa bin Zubair says, I asked Abdullah bin Amr bin As, what is the worst thing you saw the Quraysh doing to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mecca? He said, one day when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying at the Kaaba, when Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, la'anahullah, he came, and he took a cloth or something and strangled the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from behind until he was about to die. And nobody could stand up. Nobody could stand up to defend the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now this same story is narrated in the Musnad of Al-Bazzar, that one day Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, when he was the Khalifa in Kufa, in Iraq, he was giving the khutbah, Friday khutbah. He said, Man ashja'un nas? Who's the most brave of all people? They said, Ant, you. And Ali was brave. Ali was very brave. He said, Amma ana فما قابلني أحد إلا أنصفته. Nobody stood up to me except that I dealt with him properly. ولكن أشجع الناس أبو بكر. But the most brave of all of us was Abu Bakr. And that's when he narrated this hadith also. He said, you should have seen. One day when the Quraysh, they came and they strangled the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and none of us had the strength to stand up and defend him, except Abu Bakr, who stood up and he pushed Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, and he said, أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجْلًا أَن يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ. You're just going to kill someone because he says, Allah is my Lord. And then Ali said, radiallahu anha, so who's better? Mu'min, Ali Fir'aun, that person who believed in Musa, but he was hiding his iman, or Abu Bakr? He said, Wallahi, Abu Bakr is better, because that one was hiding his iman, while Abu Bakr, his iman was open. So they wanted to kill him. Imagine he was praying. They strangled him from behind until he was about to die. Also, in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, one day when the Prophet ﷺ was praying, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, he narrated this story. He said when Abu Jahl came, and his friends were sitting, the Quraysh of Makkah, the disbelievers, he said, you guys leave Muhammad to pray here. Who's going to go to Fulan ibn Fulan? He mentioned someone, because they slaughtered a camel yesterday or day before, and bring the stomach, the guts of this camel and the intestines which are left outside, they're about to rot. So he can put it on Muhammad's back when he makes his sujood. فَبَعَثَ أَشْقَى الْقَوْمِ وَهُوَ عُقْبَةُ بِنْ أَبِي مُعَيْطٍ, the same guy, the same criminal. Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, he went and took, imagine, I'm sure most of you have not seen an animal being slaughtered. The stomach smell, insides the smell. Now imagine after 2-3 days, in the heat of Arabia. He brought that, and when the Prophet ﷺ was making sujood, he put that on top of him. And the Prophet ﷺ did not get up. And they were laughing at him, فَجَعَلُوا يَضْحَكُونَ. And they were pointing at him, making fun. Until Fatima, radiallahu anha, she came from the house and she took that off the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now you can imagine that. You know, verbal abuse is something, but then physical abuse is something else. Strangling him, trying to kill him, putting the guts, the animals of the animal after 2-3 days of slaughtering on someone who is praying. When Fatima removed that, the Prophet ﷺ, he raised his hand and he said, Allahumma alayka bi Quraysh, Allahumma alayka bi Quraysh, Allahumma alayka bi Quraysh. Oh Allah, deal with Quraysh, oh Allah, deal with Quraysh, oh Allah, deal with Quraysh. When he said that, Ibn Mas'ud said, the one who's narrating this story, they were all scared. They were really afraid, because they knew, even in their kufr, they knew that du'as in the Kaaba there, they're accepted. They were really scared. And then the Prophet ﷺ mentioned them by name. He said, Allahumma alayka bi Abi Jahl. Oh Allah, deal with Abu Jahl. Wa alayka bi Utbah ibn Rabi'a, and Utbah bin Rabi'a, and Shayba bin Rabi'a, his brother, and Walid ibn Utbah, and Umayyah bin Khalaf, and Uqbah bin Abi Mu'ayt, the criminal who brought the guts. Ibn Mas'ud said, these are the same people. I swear by the one in whose hand is my soul. I saw them. They were all killed, struck dead in the battle of Badr. And the Prophet ﷺ ordered them to be thrown into that well. These were the main criminals. These were the main criminals. Why did Ibn Mas'ud go and remove those intestines from the Prophet ﷺ, or the stomachs, whatever it is? Why didn't he go and remove it? Because he was too weak to do that. Remember, they're still weak. They're very weak, the Muslims in Mecca. If they could not do this to the Prophet ﷺ before because he had his uncle. Remember, it's a tribal system. His uncle is defending him. But now his uncle is gone. So the weak became more weak, and even the ones who had some strength, like the Prophet ﷺ, khalas, now it's gone. Now they became weak also. Imagine, it's at that point. They can't even stand up to defend the Prophet ﷺ. Why am I mentioning this? I'm trying to give you a clear picture of what they went through. They were really tortured, persecuted, abused. And that is why Allah gave them a great status, the Sahaba, especially those who believed in the early stages. Because what they went through, nobody else can go through. Another story of how they dealt with the Prophet ﷺ, trying to abuse him. Abu Jahl, the same criminal, one day he came talking to his friends, says, هل يعفر محمد وجهه بين أظهركم. Muhammad comes here and he puts his face on the ground in front of you. You don't do anything. Meaning when the Prophet ﷺ prays. He said, وَاللَّاتُ الْعُزَّى. I swear by Lat al-Uzza, there are two idols. لَإِنْ رَأَيْتُهُ يَفْعَلُ ذَلِكَ لَأَطْوَأَنَّ عَلَى رَقْبَتِهِ. If today he does that, I'm going to snap his neck. I'm going to step on his neck. So the Prophet ﷺ came. He started to pray. When he stepped forward to go and do what he wants to do, and the others are watching, obviously. Before he could get close to the Prophet ﷺ, he started to run in the same direction he came from, running. They said to him, what is wrong with you? What is happening? He said, إِنَّ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَهُ لَخَندَقًا مِنْ نَارٍ. I see a ditch, a trench of fire between me and him. They don't see anything, his friends. They just see the Prophet ﷺ praying. He says, I see a ditch of fire between me and him. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وأجنحة, and I see wings. He said, I see wings. The Prophet ﷺ said, لو دنا مني, if he came close to me, لاختطفته الملائكة عضوا عضوا. The angels would have snatched him and tore him up part by part. And on that Allah revealed the completion of Surah 2. What was the first surah to be revealed? Surah Al-Alaq. Remember, the first Quran to be revealed was Iqra. Iqra bismi rabbika. The first 6 verses. Now on this occasion, from verse 7 was revealed about this event. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed saying, Kalla inna al-insana la yatgha. Nay, but the human being, he passes the limit. The human being here mentioned is Abu Jahl. Ar-Ra'ahu istaghna, because he feels himself, he doesn't need Allah. He's okay. Inna ila rabbika ar-ruj'a, but the reality is you shall return to your Lord. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يَنْهَى عَبْدًا إِذَا صَلَّى. Do you see this man who wants to prevent the slave from praying? أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَى الْهُدَى. Why do you want to stop someone from praying? Maybe he's on the right guidance. أَوْ أَمَرَ بِالتَّقْوَى. He's someone who commanding you to do good. أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى. Do you see if he was lying and he turned away? أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَرَى. This is Abu Jahl now. Does he not know that Allah, He sees everything? كَلَّا لَإِن لَمْ يَنْتَهِ. If he does not stop, لَنَسْفَعَنَّ بِالنَّاصِيَةِ. We shall take hold of him by his forehead. نَاصِيَةٍ كَاذِبَةٍ خَاطِئَةٍ. A forehead or a forelock which is of someone who is a liar, a disbeliever. فَلْيَدْعُ نَادِيَ. Then let him call his friends. Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt and Utbah and Walid bin Shayba. سَنَدْعُ الزَّبَانِيَ. We shall call Zabaniya. كَلَّا لَا تُطِعْهُ. Nay, do not accept what he says, meaning don't pray at the Kaaba. Don't follow him. وَاسْجُدْ وَاقْتَرِبْ. Rather you should pray, make sujood and get close. Because he said, Abu Jahl, أَنَا صَاحِبُ النَّادِي. If I call the Quraysh, everybody will come to help me. And the Prophet ﷺ was told, if he does that, we shall call the Zabaniya. Zabaniya are some of the strongest angels of Allah. So if he threatens you, I have people who will help me, you tell him that I have angels who will help me. كَلَّا لَا تُطِعْهُ وَاسْجُدْ وَاقْتَرِبْ. So this continued. They used to abuse the Prophet ﷺ in different ways. They used to torture him. And I mentioned yesterday, Khwani and Akhawat, and this is the trial Allah gives the believers. Allah tests us because of our iman. That's why some of us will ask, why do our countries, we Muslims, why do us Muslims, we suffer more than those who are not even Muslim? It's because of the iman you have. Allah has to test you. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسَ يَقُولُ آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do the people think they'll say, we are believers, then you won't be tested? وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Allah has tested those believers before you. So Allah is going to know who are the true believers or those who are just lying. You have to be tested. And the prophets of Allah got the greatest tests. One day the Prophet ﷺ, this hadith is reported by Ahmad and Ibn Majah, he was sitting down, hazin, he was stressed and he was sad. And his beard was full of blood because they had hit him. They had beat him up. He sat down sad, dejected. So Jibreel came to him and said to him, مَا لَكَ يَا Muhammad? What is wrong with you? فقال, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَعَلَ بِي هَؤُلَاء وَفَعَلُوا وَفَعَلُوا وَفَعَلُوا. They did this, they did that to me. So Jibreel said to him, أَتُحِبُّ أَنْ أُرِيكَ آيَةً. You want me to show you a sign? A sign that you're a true prophet. That you should be strong. You should not let this deter you from what you have to do. At the end of the day, the prophets of Allah, all of them, they were humans. They had emotions. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said yes. So Jibreel said to him, فَنَظَرَ الشَّجَرَ فِي وَادٍ. He looked at a tree which was far away. And he said, أُدْعُ بِتِلْكَ الشَّجَرَ. He said, call the tree. So the Prophet ﷺ called the tree. And the tree moved and walked, if you want to say walked. It moved until it came next to the Prophet ﷺ. And then Jibreel said to the Prophet ﷺ, مُرْهَا فَلْتَرْجَعْ. Tell the tree to go back. And the tree moved back to where it was. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Hasbi, this is enough. It was a way of comforting him. And that is what we said, that is the role Khadija played. Now he didn't have any more Khadija. You understand? So Allah had to show him signs to make him strong. And that is why you see the surahs of Makkah, which are revealed in Makkah, they were all about this. For the Prophet ﷺ and the believers in general. Be patient. Inna wa'da Allahi haqq. The promise of Allah is true. Allah is going to make you strong. Do not worry what they do to you. وَلَا تَحْزَنْ عَلَيْهِمْ. Don't become so sad. وَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ. Do not become so stressed. All of these are verses of the Quran to strengthen him. Become strong. And Allah mentions the stories of the prophets. This is what they did to Isa. This is what they did to Zakaria. This is what they did to Ibrahim. This is what they did to Nuh. This is what they did to Hud. So that you should know that no other prophet came except that he was tested just like you. You as a believer should know that no other believers came except that they were tested just like you. That is the great role of the Quran. But where is the Quran from our daily lives? 90% of our problems will be non-existent if we were people of the Quran. We read the Quran while contemplating on it. Because every human being needs that comfort. It's that medicine. And that is why Allah says the Quran is medicine. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ. It's a medicine for what is in the hearts. It's emotional cure. You need that. The human being, when he reads about death, you know that, okay, whatever problems I have, I could die tomorrow. There's something greater coming. The human being, when he reads about Jannah, his motivation is increased. When he reads about the hellfire, his motivation is increased because there's something greater coming. When you read the human being, just we are like that. When you know that there's other people who suffered maybe more than you, that makes your suffering lighter. That is why the Quran was so important, and that is one of the reasons the Quran, it was revealed what? Izin. It was revealed in parts. Every situation strengthening the Prophet ﷺ, comforting him, and making him strong. The Prophet ﷺ, he was tortured, he was persecuted, he was abused. This is the end of the 10th year, beginning of 11th year. The Muslims, the situation became worse. The situation of the Muslims became worse. It was not only him, because of course if it can happen to him, like I said, then everybody else, it's open season. You know, it's open season. What time is Dhuhr? 1:30. 1:30. Okay, time. So we'll stop here. What is going to happen now is that Abu Bakr is going to leave Mecca. Even Abu Bakr tried to leave Mecca. And the Prophet ﷺ is going to go out and seek help from other people. We'll leave that for after Dhuhr, inshallah. We have a few minutes. If you have questions on what we talked about, only what we talked about, you can ask. Now, what did they do? Is there something specific? I can't recall something specific that Utbah bin Rabi'a did, but they're all in the same group. Anything they did together. These are what they call the Sanadid Quraysh, the leaders of the Quraysh who were against Islam. Now, but something specific they did, I don't recall. Now, the 5 main criminals, the top terrorists. Well, these are the real terrorists. Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, Utbah ibn Rabi'a and Shayba bin Rabi'a, the 2 brothers. Those are how many? 4. Then we have Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt. Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt. Those are 5. Now, you have Umayyah bin Khalaf. And you have Abu al-Bakhtari ibn Hisham. You have Abu Sufyan. And Abu Sufyan became Muslim after. Abu Sufyan was also one of the main. And we're going to reach Medina soon. He was the chief of the Quraysh after that. After all of these guys were killed in Badr, he was the leader, Abu Sufyan.
الله الله